I stand by one simple fact. Had Blazing Lasers been the pack-in game from the moment the TurboGrafx-16 launched instead of Keith Courage, I really believe that the system would have been in a much better position to go against the Nintendo Entertainment System and the forthcoming release of the Sega Genesis. It had absolutely everything you could want in a launch title. It was fast, it looked gorgeous, it had a killer soundtrack, it was just all in all a kick-ass game. But it wasn't meant to be. NEC would instead pick Keith Courage, and the system would go down in history as, well, you know what happened. But to be fair, the Sega Genesis did feature a far greater marketing push than the TurboGrafx-16, and it was a more powerful system right out of the gate, or at least it sure looked that way to anyone who saw those early commercials. But enough about the history lesson, let's jump right on in with Blazing Lasers. Blazing Lasers was easily one of the best video games ever released on the TurboGrafx-16. It features 9 vertically scrolling levels, each with one or more major boss battles. It features blistering fast action with virtually no slowdown whatsoever. Hell, you can even select the speed at which your ship moves by pressing the select button on the controller. Up to 5 different speed settings can actually be selected. The slower your ship moves, the better you can position yourself, but you put your ship at risk of being shot down by enemy fire. The weapon system is pretty unique for its time. As you shoot down enemies, you can collect various Roman numerals, 1 to 4. You have the Photon Blaster, Power Wave, Field Thunder, and Ring Blaster. What kind of sucks though is that the instruction manual doesn't tell you which is which. Each are completely unique. One has you firing lasers, one has a typical single shot that you can upgrade, and then there's one of my favorites, which is actually like a wave shot that goes in multiple directions, and then there's the one where you get the lovely little ring around your ship that helps you sort of protect while you also shoot sort of a standard shot. Along the way you can also collect several secondary power-ups such as the shield, homing missiles, full fire, which is extremely useful, and the multi-body, which works sort of like an option from Gradius. On top of all of this, you can also collect power-up gels, which power up your ship's primary weapon. The more gels you collect, the more powerful you become. Reaching power level 6 requires a ton of gels. You need to be careful with all the power-ups though, because if you accidentally grab the wrong Roman numeral, you'll switch back your fire to one that you didn't necessarily want. When Blazing Lasers was originally released in Japan, it was based on a film called Gunhead, but all of the references from the film were dropped for the North American release, save for one mention of Gunhead as the ship's name in the instruction manual. Looking back at the game today, it remains extremely impressive to see how much it has actually held up. While the genre is overflowing with quality games, back in 1989 this really was something special, as it showed how powerful the TurboGrafx-16 was in relation to the NES. Sadly, most people looked away from the TurboGrafx-16 and sort of towards the Sega Genesis when it was released, but that doesn't mean anything. Blazing Lasers is still a very technically impressive game. There are tons of highly detailed sprites, the boss battles are all unique, and you go from sort of mechanical or space stages to bioorganic stages and just everything in between. There are tons of bullets everywhere, and there's virtually no slowdown in sight. This is all extremely impressive considering it was a launch title. The soundtrack features some really great chip tunes, and while it's true later CD releases would sort of come to define the TurboGrafx as a whole, there is some really memorable tunes here. If you own a TurboGrafx 16 or a Turbo Duo, this is a must-own video game. Blazing Lasers was also released on the Virtual Console on the Wii, and even on the PlayStation Network in Japan. If you have the option to pick up and play this game, I highly recommend you do, as it really is a genre-defining shooter, especially for one that was a launch title for the TurboGrafx 16 back in 1989. Go out and pick this game up, or at least play it by any means you can. It's great.
Do